We just recently exceeded 100,000 JoyPowered Workspace podcast downloads, which delights us and has prompted us to do some reflection. Welcome to the JoyPowered Workspace podcast, where we help HR and business leaders embrace joy in the workplace. I'm Susan White, owner of Susan Tinder White Consulting, an HR consulting practice. Joining me is my co-host and dear friend, JoDee Curtis, owner of Purple Ink, a large-scale HR firm that I'm part of as an executive collaborator. Today, we're going to discuss us. We just recently exceeded 100,000 JoyPowered Workspace podcast downloads, which delights us and has prompted us to do some reflection. It's been an interesting, challenging, fun-filled, educational journey for JoDee, our producer Emily, and myself since this podcast's inception in 2017. JoDee, can you believe it?
I can't believe it, although it has been such a fun ride from the very first episode. We've had so much fun doing this and have just learned so much. So
I feel the exact same way. Oh my gosh. I always think it's kind of my hobby now. Podcasting's become my hobby and joyful hobby. So let's start with some context about podcasting. Honestly, JoDee, when you and I decided we were going to do this, I knew very little about how to podcast, where to podcast. And I don't know about yourself, but it has been a fun ride.
right. At that time I didn't really even listen to many podcasts.
Mhm.
I know I did some, but not a whole lot. So it really was a new adventure for all of us. So,
Yeah, it did. It turned me on to a bunch of podcasts that I do listen to right now that I never even thought to do it. So, Podcast Statistics has compiled Podcast Statistics 2025. And I think it's good for us to kind of understand in the world of podcasting, what are the numbers? So,
right.
first of all, there are 4.52 million podcasts worldwide today. Almost 500,000 of them were launched in the last 3 months.
584.1 million people worldwide listen to podcasts, which is interesting too. And South Africans are the biggest podcast listeners, with 68% of their population being podcast fans. I wonder why that
I
is.
wonder, yeah, what's going on in South Africa? I hope they're listening to the Joy Powered Workspace.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
In the US, 55% of the population, that's 158 million people as of the fall of 2025, listen to at least one podcast a month.
57% of men listen to podcasts and 52% of women do.
Since podcasting started, the number of podcast listeners continues to rise each year. It's never declined. So think about that. It's constantly rising and continuing to rise.
Yeah, yeah. The younger the person, the more likely they are podcast listeners, as only 38% of people over the age of 55 consider themselves podcast listeners.
Hmm. YouTube is the most popular platform for podcasts. That surprised me too. About 33% of podcast listeners do it through YouTube.
Yeah. 26% prefer to listen on Spotify.
14% prefer to listen on Apple Podcasts, which is where I thought everybody went because that's where I go.
Me too.
The remaining 27% use a variety of platforms.
86.1% of people say they prefer to listen to podcasts on their mobile devices.
Yeah, that's
That's
me.
not surprising. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
because I do most of mine whether I'm cleaning the house or if I'm walking. Yeah, so I
Mhm.
like mine on my phone. So I get that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
average podcast episode usually lasts somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. So our producer went back, Emily, to take a look at what is our average length. JoDee, I was surprised to find out our average podcast length is 36.49 minutes. So almost 37 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And the top 25% of podcasts have an average of 114 downloads in the first 7 days. And that's pretty close to where we are as well. The top 1% average 4,824, and the top 50% is 30 downloads.
Those numbers really surprised me. I can't imagine to be in the top 50% of podcasts, you only need 30 downloads in the first 7 days.
I
Oh my
know.
goodness. So we
Yeah.
truly are in the top quartile because we know that
Yeah.
we average above 114
Yeah.
downloads. So now we have our new goal though. If we want to get to the top 1%, we need 4,824 downloads in the first 7 days. We've
There
got
you
some work to
go.
do.
And listeners, tell your friends. Help us reach our goal.
Please, please. So let's give some more details on the Joy Powered Workspace at the time of this recording. So I think it's kind of fun for our listeners and definitely fun for JoDee and I.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have had 230 episodes, and this particular one you're listening to today will actually be number 235 by the time it launches.
Yes, yes. And our three most popular episodes to date are number one, meeting skills with 2,200 downloads. Does that surprise you, Susan?
It blows me away. Yes. And this one was a number of years ago, but it still has really good information on it. I went back and listened to it. I think there's really good tips in there about how to run an effective meeting.
Yeah. Well, and I just think it's something a lot of groups,
Mhm.
people, teams struggle to have good meetings. So maybe it's not surprising that was the highest download.
Yeah, good point. The number
Yeah.
two most popular episode we've ever had so far is employment law Q&A. So people were able to send in their questions and we responded to answers to them with 2,100 downloads.
Wow. Wow. And then number three was office etiquette with 1,200 downloads. In July 2025, we launched a sequel on this topic with Why Business Etiquette Matters with Pamela Eyring, who is a business etiquette expert.
I still love that episode where we found out about the why behind some of the things that happen in the world
Yeah.
of work when people are trying to be respectful of each other. I
Yeah.
really think this is a course that we should be teaching, right, in business school or to all professionals. Love it.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yes, we've had a few dogs. We've had our least popular ones. Now, who knows why? It could have been the timing that these episodes launched or
Yeah.
whatever, but they didn't quite get us the results we'd hoped for. So, our number one least listened to, if we want to call that our least popular, was work from home technology. We only had 122 downloads. Now, granted, this was back in 2017. We were new to this game. There were not a lot of people out there that had heard of the Joy Powered Workspace. But I do have to believe if we did this episode again into 2025, the time has come. I think that we're post pandemic, more and more people are interested in the newest technology available to work
Yeah.
remotely. Now,
Yeah.
we did do two episodes on working remotely, but the actual technology one just did not seem to attract listeners like we'd hoped it would.
Right. Okay, the second least downloaded podcast we did, and this one hurts a bit, I think. Our topic was Ask an HR Expert with only 138 downloads. And in this one, we answer questions from listeners that have been accumulating. So we constantly have questions that are submitted, and sometimes we make the question its own topic, but this one we just caught up on a lot of, shorter questions. So people didn't like it, I guess.
Either that or they didn't see us as HR experts. I don't know which, but yes, ouch.
Oh, yeah.
We think of
There you
ourselves. We do think of ourselves as HR experts. So, you know what?
That's right.
If you have a question, we love getting them. As you know, at the end of every one of our episodes, we take a listener question, and
Yeah.
we do have a backlog. So, we probably won't do one of these episodes just on questions again based on that feedback, but we do hope that you'll continue asking those questions.
Yeah.
All right. And then the number three least listened to episode that we launched was creating meaningful internships. We only had 148 downloads as of this broadcast. And so that one, for whatever reason, maybe fell short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so Jody, I thought it'd be fun for us to talk about some of our favorite episodes. And thanks to our producer, I might be able to download just a quick hit on any of these as you would like me to. So why don't you run us through each of yours? And if you want, I'll play a quick bit from them.
Susan, why don't you play a clip from my number one favorite, which was episode number 39, Recruiting and Retaining People with Disabilities? I wanted to ask about that because I think many times when we think of accommodations, we think expensive.
Yes,
Right?
very
And that
true.
they don't have to be
They don't have
expensive.
to be. And I mentioned the atrophy in my hand. So if you have atrophy, your hands, your feet, and they get very cold, it's harder for you to use them. And so that's one thing I keep on me is medical gloves because I can still I might look silly, but I look like a member of the Blue Man Group, but I put those gloves on and then my hands are warm enough to where I can still work. I can still use touch screens and things like that. So you're right. Accommodations do not have to be expensive. Sometimes it's just being very creative in your thinking and what you have around.
I think one of the reasons why that was my favorite one was a couple things. Number one, she did give us some very low cost ideas on accommodations, which I had been someone who always thought accommodations would be expensive. But also, Susan, I know you are so passionate about that topic, and you've spent a lot of time and energy focused on recruiting and retaining people with disabilities that it just really warmed my heart a bit, I
Mm,
think, in thinking about your passion for it and how much I learned that I didn't know. So,
well, thank you. I love that episode too. So I'm so glad that was your number one.
yeah. My second favorite was episode number 121 on sabbaticals.
I think that's one of the most powerful pieces about it because it forces you to truly institutionalize your relationship with clients, make absolutely certain that they have multiple touch points with your firm. And in the long run, that is incredibly beneficial to the firm, to young people growing up in the firm, and to clients who are also going to be going through succession and dealing with different folks in their company. So for me, it was just a powerful lesson.
That one was my favorite because that was an old boss of mine. He wouldn't want me to say he was an old boss, but a former boss of mine. And that one too, I think we think of sabbaticals as being beneficial to the person taking one, but he really brought in so many different perspectives, as we just heard, about all the other people that a sabbatical can be beneficial for too. So it
Mm.
was fun. My number 3 was number 135 on the 4-day work week. They also found that 2/3 of engaged employees are thriving in their overall lives, regardless of the number of days worked in a week. And that when it comes to overall well being, the quality of the work has almost 3 times the impact, regardless of the number of days worked as well. So, if the goal is to build an engaging workplace culture, reducing the work week may not be the place to start. While 4-day work weeks may be a good idea for some, policies that seem to control work life balance are based on 2 assumptions. Number one, that work is bad and should be reduced or avoided. Or two, that we know what will work effectively for all people. So, yeah, we may be making an assumption that a 4-day work week is good for everyone. And that one I really enjoyed because I had worked 4-day work weeks. And as you just heard in the clip, I found myself to be one of those statistics where I was so much more productive by working 4-day weeks. But what was fun for me on that episode that I didn't know in planning it was that Susan, you worked 4-day work weeks also.
I
So we
did.
both had some great stories on
Mhm.
doing that one. So,
Yeah, I loved that one. That was a great one.
yeah. Okay, two more. Number 206, what HR leaders should know about domestic violence.
Domestic violence, it's a concern in every workplace. Each year, domestic violence costs American businesses alone 1.8 billion in lost productivity. That's a lot. And 74% of victims report that their abuser has harassed them on the job. And so when you think about the prevalence of domestic abuse that oftentimes is thought about to be an at-home issue, there's really a tremendous spillover that happens in the workplace. And so employers who address the issue, they can provide real help to victims and prevent the associated risks in the workplace.
That one, unfortunately, was not a real positive topic, but the statistics in it were alarming to me about
Mhm.
the impacts of domestic violence, just again on not just on the person, but on the family and on their impact on their work and the others around them at work too. So, a lot of learning on that one.
I found it very eye-opening too.
Yes. And finally, my next favorite, which is pretty recent one, was our episode on workplace romance, finding love at work.
I love to tell people we fell in love in the Fisher Price aisle. Now, you sometimes disagree with that story, but it was in the middle of the store where the boys could talk to the girls without anybody seeing them.
Okay, that's weird. No, that is so that wasn't it was just an aisle in the store. It's a small store, relatively small store. And why you say what's the deal with the Fisher Price aisle? At the time, it was Christmas time, and back in those days, of course, the store was absolutely packed with people. And there was a very short aisle that had just the Fisher Price stuff, all the baby toys, and I could stand there and be out of everyone's way. That's what I was thinking. And so I would, and you would sometimes be there as well. Yeah, it was in the middle of the store. It wasn't a secret or anything.
So there I was, falling in love in the Fisher Price aisle, and he was trying to be efficient and out of people's way. It was eye-opening for me too.
Oh my gosh, I laughed the whole way through that podcast because I thought it was such a fun topic and didn't realize Bill and Susan, well, you had told me that you have fallen in love at work, but I didn't realize you actually worked together 2 times in
Mhm.
your career, and so I just had so much fun, and having Bill on the podcast was fun as well too. So,
Ah, thank you for doing that.
yeah.
So, Jody, let me share my favorite episodes. And I've got three that particularly kind of make my heart happy. The first one was the HR business partnering one, where we had Jerry Goldstein as a guest. I did a little bit of research in preparation for today's episode, and I found some information that HCI published in April of 2018 about what are the competencies that are really needed in the HR business partners of today and really into the future. So, why I love that episode so much is first of all, Jerry Goldstein was such a wonderful business leader to be the HR business partner for. We had a wonderful time together, and I felt like we created a really good workplace culture for all of his employees. But particularly, what was so special about that episode, not long after his recording of it, he and his wife went to Hawaii, and there he fell and he ended up having to be airlifted out of Hawaii back to Chicago where they live. And he had lost a lot of his functions, including his ability to speak. And so as he was going through his rehab, they wanted to know what did his normal voice sound like. And the beautiful thing was we had the recording. The rehab specialists used it so they could hear what his voice truly naturally was. And they had a goal to work back toward. So it could be why we have so many downloads of this particular episode. But I also think this topic of HR business partnering really resonates with HR professionals and business leaders.
Yeah.
So love that one. My second most favorite episode was Parting Ways in a Humane Way. We had 1,100 downloads of this. Let's take a listen to a clip. Well, I've seen examples of where progressive corrective action was done very well, and I've seen places where it has not been done well. One example I have of where I thought it was really well done was a gentleman I worked with in Ohio, and he had a fairly large staff, and he really truly cared about his employees, and many of them were in sales-related positions. And so the employees generally knew when they weren't bringing in the numbers that they weren't doing well. And this particular manager, John, was always very supportive, always looking for the bright side of things. But when he realized he had somebody not performing well, he would, obviously coach them and try to coach up, not out. And then sometimes he had to move to putting people on warning. And then when things were still not working well, the next step usually was final written warning, or some organizations will call that probation or whatever. John would really sit down with the individual, take him out for coffee and say, listen, we're at the point now, we're ready to move to the next level. And I don't want to put you through that unless you feel like this is what you want to do. Instead, I'd like to spend a little time just talking about, are you happy in this job? Is this fulfilling? Is this where you want to be and what you want to do? I want to tell you, 90% of the time, the individual would just do a sigh of relief and say, no, this isn't what I want to do. I don't like not being successful. And then John would say, let's talk about where do we go from here?
Right.
And he really would work with them. And I would then help him on a transition plan of what other roles might be either in the organization or outside. And how do we help equip him so he can go out and get a job where he will be successful? So I love that episode because I truly believe we as HR professionals, as business leaders, we still have room to get better at this, at helping people part ways from jobs that they are in. And we have that potential every time we terminate an employee to either leave an imprint on them of a really bad experience that's going to haunt them the rest of their lives, or we can use that opportunity, hopefully, to help that person that we have to part ways with, we have to terminate, to survive this and to dust themselves off and go on to go be their best self professionally. So I think it's an episode that really can give you some tools to help you have a more positive impact.
Agree. That was a good one.
Yeah. So number 3, my final most favorite, is workplace investigations. And let's take a quick listen, and I'll tell you why I loved it so much. Then I think you have to do some discernment when a concern comes forward. I don't think every single thing deserves, demands, or requires a formal investigation, but I do think it's important that you make note of when someone comes forward with an issue or a complaint or grievance of some kind, that you talk to the individual and what the outcome was. Is it that you shared with the individual, maybe it's that they didn't understand a policy. I've had people come forward and say, I cannot believe that Jack keeps bugging me to sponsor him for the bowl-a-thon that we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And the fact is that Jack should not be nagging this employee about being a sponsor for the upcoming bowl-a-thon, but it's not really an investigation necessary. It's not really, somebody needs to talk to Jack about it. So why I love that one is I think it's a really good sound grounding in workplace investigations that sometimes business leaders find themselves in the need to do, or HR professionals find the need to do. We continue to get a lot of good feedback from that episode and a lot of questions from it, which actually caused us to do a sequel called Avoiding Workplace Investigation Pitfalls. So what are some of the things that could happen in the middle of an investigation that really makes things turn out not as positive as they should? So love the topic, love the continued interest in it. And please, listeners, if you have more questions, don't hesitate to send them in on that topic.
Right.
All right. Hey, JoDee, we decided that we needed to have an expert join us today as we do our look back on our 100,000 downloads. And that's very special guest is our dear friend, Emily Miller. Emily is not only head of marketing for Purple Lake, but she's also the JoyPowered Workspace podcast producer. And Emily, any other titles that you use or any other ways we should call you?
Gosh, I can't think of any.
Right. Resident genius, perhaps?
Yeah, sure,
I
I'll
don't
take
know.
that.
Yes, able to do anything.
That's
So,
right.
welcome. We are so glad that you're here, Emily. Emily, what did you know about producing a podcast when we started this in 2017?
Nothing. I don't think I had even listened to a podcast at the time. I knew what they were. I had thought about listening, but I hadn't yet. So yeah, it was a big learning curve.
Yeah. And how did you learn how to do it? Susan, and I think you just said, I'll figure it out, which is what you usually tell us at any kind of marketing issue. But we just said, go do it. Good.
Yeah, so we used our local library's whisper room
Yeah.
for recording at the beginning, and the staff there helped us with getting things set up and how to do a recording. We also worked with a marketing consultant at the time who showed me the basics of
Yeah.
Adobe Audition, which is what I used to edit at the time, helped us get set up with hosting. And then from there, I just kind of learned as I went along.
I'll say
Amazing, I
that
think.
whisper room at the library was great, but it was not a very big room, and the
Mm.
3 of us would crowd in there, and sometimes we had 2 guests with us, and it's funny to think back on that.
Yeah.
Oh, so fun. So, Emily, for you, what has been the most challenging part, maybe the weirdest part, and the best part of producing a podcast?
So challenging. I guess it would be it's a big time commitment. I enjoy doing it,
Mm.
so that's okay. But just for anybody who's thinking about starting a podcast, it takes a lot of time. And just figuring things out as I went along. I think I'm gonna have an upcoming challenge, which is editing myself.
Oh,
So
this episode,
yeah,
yes.
that'll be the challenge. Um, weirdest? Um, in a good way, weird. People we don't know finding the podcast is kinda it's just kinda crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Isn't that true? I'm so surprised at all the outreach that we get every day, every week from people who want to be on it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I did not expect to have PR pitches in my inbox all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then best, would be just going on this adventure and watching it grow. It's been fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And it really has grown, that's for
It
sure.
has.
Has anything surprised you during this journey of podcasting?
I don't think I even had any expectations going in, so in a way, it's all a surprise.
Yeah.
Um,
For all of
but
us.
yeah. But I think it's probably taken off more than I would have expected if I had thought about it at all when we
Yeah.
started.
amazing. That's great. So, Emily, you don't have to go too deep, but can you give a brief thumbnail sketch of where listeners are? I know you do analytics every month, which I love seeing,
Mhm.
or anything else you want to highlight from the analytics that you work on that about our listenership that would be interesting.
Sure. So I looked last week, and in the last 12 months, most of our downloads are in the US, but about 7% of you listening aren't, which is cool for us.
Mhm.
um, Indiana, our home state, is not the top state anymore. It was for a long time, but now it's California, and Indiana is just number 6. So we
Yeah.
have definitely grown outside of our networks and circles.
Yeah.
2025 has been a big growth year. We mentioned a little bit. As we're recording right now at the end of September, we're about 1,000 downloads shy of 2024. So we're on track to set a new record this year. So that's
Oh,
fun.
wow. Hmm.
Very exciting. And Emily, we listed our favorite episodes. Is there one that you think of as your favorite?
I don't know if I have a clear favorite. I did look back and pick a few that I have really liked. This year, I really liked our Gen Z episode. I
Yeah.
thought it was a fun format, having the panel, hearing directly from Gen Z about what they like and don't like in the workplace.
Right.
So here is a clip of that.
Would you share with our listeners what drives you or motivates you in the workplace?
I like learning new things, taking on new challenges, and then eventually, of course, being able to, with those new things that I'm learning, then help drive change.
I what I love most about my job is that I run my own business. Really, the biggest thing that fuels me is that I have like total control over my life.
At least for me, I have kind of like this internal pressure that I put on myself, where it's like I feel like I have to do the work, and so in my mind, I might as well do it really well and kind of just put my best effort in.
I think for me, I am motivated by like connecting with people at my work, whether it's my coworkers or students.
A lot of it is just, wanting to do something that helps people. I also like, a lot of growth and increasing my skill set.
That was a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that one too. Yeah. So, are there any episodes you'd like to erase and start over?
I can't think of any content that I would erase, but some
Okay.
of our old episodes have pretty rough audio when we were still learning and figuring things out. So if
Yeah.
I could fix that audio, I would love to fix that audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
That's
Well,
good.
I thought about, thank you so much, Emily. We appreciate what you do every single episode and just keeping us on track. And you always have great suggestions for us. So I just want to say thank you
Right.
very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
It's been so much fun
Mm.
figuring this out along with you.
Yeah. Emily is our magic that most of you don't even realize how magical she is for us. So thank you. So,
Yeah,
Ah,
you're welcome.
Emily, we'd love to ask our guests what brings you joy at work?
My top strengths, a few of them on Clifton Strengths, are learner and achiever. So anytime I can learn something new. So as we've talked about with this podcast, that's part of the fun of this podcast is figuring it out and getting new skills. And achiever, anytime I can check a lot of stuff off of my list.
Mm. Yep, that's awesome. Well, we're certainly appreciative for all the learning you did about podcasting.
yes.
So,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Emily.
yeah.
you're
So
welcome.
I was thinking about the highs and the lows of this journey that we've been on. And for me, Jody, the highs have really been the countless learnings from you, because you just bring a lot, I think, to every episode. The research that we've done preparing for episodes. And I love all the guests that we have. I feel like I walk away with a nugget from at least one nugget, usually more, from every person who comes onto our show. I would say the low kind of goes back to what Emily has said about the quality of sound. I want to know why in the world I thought it was okay to podcast when I had laryngitis. I did. There's a couple episodes out there that I refuse to listen to again because I sound so awful. I should have pulled the plug, but oh no, I had that commitment. I said I would do it. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate listeners if you had to listen through a couple of really awful Susan voice episodes. How about you, Jody? Your highs, your lows?
Yeah, well, clearly the high for me has been working with you, Susan,
Oh,
and you, Emily, who always make us sound great. And you mentioned the learnings. I just think that, as our listeners, you may think we sound like experts on all these topics, but many times we pick our topics based on listener questions that we might not know much about at all. So we are doing research and finding guests who can speak on the topic. So I'm learning so much many times before we ever record the podcast. And then on the recording, we're learning a lot as well too. So I just never would have thought that would have been my biggest takeaway, or I'd never thought of it as a way for me to learn as well too. And then, as echoing both of you who mentioned our poor sound quality early on or in different episodes, we have improved so much. For many of you who might be listening to us, it might be a new podcast for you. We have come a long way. We've switched platforms several times. We've had microphones. We've done all kinds of new things. And that's been fun to hear us be better as well. So thanks to both of you.
oh
So,
my gosh. Thank you all. This is a love fest. So thank you, listeners, for listening to our love fest.
Right.
So, we always at this point in our episodes, we do a listener question. I'll tell you, for this particular episode, I went back to all the listener questions that we received over the years. And JoDee and I asked ourselves, are there any that we might answer differently if we knew something back then that we do know now?
Mhm.
Are there some answers to your questions that we would change if we could? Honestly, and from my perspective, I like our answers. As I go back and listen to them, I say, yeah, that's how I would still answer it today.
Yeah.
Now, I often think I could have been more succinct in some of my responses, or, I wish we had pointed you maybe to more tools or resources that might have been useful to a question asker.
Right.
But overall, I think our advice has been solid. But please, listeners, we do welcome any type of input you have, positive or negative. So if you ever feel like one of our answers is off the mark, don't hesitate. We take your input very seriously. Let us know. And please let those listener questions continue. We love getting them.
I do, Susan. One thing I've noticed over the years, sometimes people will comment on the podcast that the listener question didn't have anything to do with the topic of the podcast, and that is intentional. Just to put that out there, that I mean, these are real listener questions, and you mentioned earlier that we have a backlog of them. So our goal is not necessarily, well, not at all to connect with our topic of the day, but just to answer one of those questions. So,
Thank you for clarifying that. You're right. We do
yeah,
hear that. And I always feel bad saying, that's right. It had nothing to do with it.
right.
Yeah, good. So normally at this time we do In the News, and JoDee and I are out trying to keep a pulse on happenings in the world of work that we think could be related to this podcast or the need to try to create and sustain joy at work. So for this special look back episode, we thought it made sense to circle back on a couple of our early episodes on the In the News items, just kind of status what has happened in the world of work since we aired that particular episode. So
Mhm.
uh, let me go ahead and start with episode number 108, which was Difficult People and Negative Attitudes. We launched that episode February 1st, 2022. And at the time, we'd cited an HRDive.com article that had been posted October 13th, 2020. It was entitled Department of Labor Questions Whether Microsoft and Wells Fargo's D&I, Diversity and Inclusion, efforts violate Title VII. So if you want to go back and take a listen to that episode, do feel free. But just to give you the long and the short of it, at the time, the OFCCP, or the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, which is in the Department of Labor, had sent letters of inquiry to two major employers, Wells Fargo and Microsoft, who had been really vocal about pledging to increase their diversity and inclusion. The first one was Microsoft, who had been very vocal about pledging during the summer of 2020 to double the number of Black and African American contributors, managers, and executives in the U.S. in their U.S. workforce by 2025, and that Microsoft had planned to invest $150 million over the next 5 years on its diversity and inclusion programs. The second company that received this letter of inquiry from OFCCP um, was Wells Fargo Bank, committed because they had committed to doubling its number of Black leaders by 2025, and said that diversity efforts would be a major factor in their executive compensation program. Okay, so what really surprised us at the time, if you go back and listen, was that the OFCCP, who monitored government contractors and subcontractors' affirmative action efforts, was at the time challenging these two huge employers about possibly engaging in unlawful discrimination on the basis of race. So, reverse discrimination. At the time, it was at the end of President Trump's first 4 year term. And it was a shock. It's really sent shockwaves because most employers in the US were trying to figure out how do we increase the diversity of our senior level. And these were two companies who were really, really forward thinking about we're committing, we're really going to put money and time and energy behind it. And
Right.
we're going to hold our leaders accountable for getting results. So it was really a shock. And if you listen to that episode, it was a shock to me to have a government agency put these companies on notice of concerns of reverse discrimination and for attempting to right past justices and current underrepresentation. Okay, here we are right now. It's fall of 2025. Fast forward, we're about 10 months into President Trump's second administration, and the world has changed. The OFCCP really doesn't exist anymore for all intents and purposes, a shell organization. The Office of Federal Contract Compliance, no longer affirmative action truly exists for federal contractors. There's still a few administrative things they have to do. The world has changed dramatically. I should have been reading the tea leaves and understood that should he be elected again, that there would be a huge pendulum swing. Diversity and inclusion would DEI would start to be weaponized. Totally different world. I did not pick up on it. You'll go back to that episode. You'll see I was just like shocked. And now it is kind of the normal course of business. So I wish I'd paid more attention. That reverse discrimination concerns were likely to pick up again should the same administration come back into office. So
Yeah.
when you know more, you, I think, can navigate better.
Right.
So, JoDee, how about the second episode that we wanted to give an update on?
Yeah. So in episode number 125, named Background Screening for a Better Workplace, this one launched in September of 2022, and we cited a May 2021 article in SHRM's HR magazine by John Egan. He noted at least 2 million Americans have reported being victimized by workplace violence each year. Roll the tape forward to today, and we continue to experience more and more incidences of workplace violence, which include threats and verbal abuse to physical assault and up to homicide. In our show notes for this episode, we will include a link to assuredpartner.com's August 18th, 2025 blog on workplace violence in the U.S., what employers need to know and do now. Yeah.
Things are not getting better on that front.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for your dedication to the HR profession.
Thanks for joining us. Please tune in next time and make it a joy-powered day.
If you like the show, please tell a few friends about us and let us know what you thought by leaving us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening right now. Become a JoyPowered member to get extras like early access to episodes, video versions of the episodes, bonus episodes, and even more. Learn more at patreon.com/JoyPowered. You spell Patreon, Patreon. So it's patreon.com/JoyPowered. You can find more information on our podcast, books, blogs, and more at getjoypowered.com. We're at JoyPowered on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can email us via joypowered@gmail.com. Make it a joy-powered day.